Today I want to talk to you about an organization that's near and dear to my heart and tell you a story about a little 7-year-old girl. And the organization I want to talk about is the Texas Baptist Home for Children. It was formed in 1909, and it was formed by a group of Texas Baptist missionaries to support orphaned and abused and abandoned children. There were no government support for orphans, so this was a charity-based group. And the organization formed in Waxahachie, Texas, and it had a campus that housed children through the 1950s. After the 50s, it became more of an adoption and fostering service, which it continues to do to this day. They have campuses in Waxahachie, and they've recently opened a campus in the Permian Basin. Second part is I want to tell you a story about a 7-year-old that came to be at the Waxahachie campus as a 7-year-old in 1941. She stayed there through 1951. Her name was Dorothy B. Wright. Dorothy was born in Cooper, Texas in 1933, and she was born to a very prominent veterinarian that was married at the time, and to a mother who was mentally ill. Her father nor anyone in her father's family ever claimed her, and her mother was not capable of caring for her. Her maternal grandmother came to stay and to care for her until she was probably 4 or 5 years old, until the grandmother passed away. And at that time, she basically wandered the streets of Cooper, Texas. At the age of 7, the state finally institutionalized her mother, and then Dorothy was placed at the home in Waxahachie. As Dorothy found, life was hard in the 40s. There was very little money, just off of depression. There were no government supports for orphaned or abandoned children. Most of all, the placement or support of orphans in that day was based on charity. They lived a very structured, tough life. They would pick cotton in the morning, come home and do their chores. But one thing that she knew that she had a nurturing place to live. She had people that cared for her. And during her life there, she came to know Christ as her Savior. So at least she did have a place that she called home. And that's one of the legacies of TBHC, is that's what they're there for, is they're the backup, they're the caring center for kids that don't have anything else. After graduation, Dorothy went on to marry and have 4 boys. She passed away January 11th, 2021, at the age of 87. Dorothy always wanted to be a good person, a good mother, a good Christian. Towards the end of her life, she was in tremendous pain, and she came to wonder, why is God leaving me here? Have I been a bad mother? Have I been a bad person? Is there something that I've done wrong? And Dorothy had those questions up until near the end of her death. But kind of like Paul Harvey used to say, there is a rest of the story. And I know the rest of the story because Dorothy was my mother. And she was asking me those questions. And she was asking me, why is God living here? Why am I here? What's the purpose? And I told her at the time that I didn't know what God's reasoning was or what He had in store. One of the other things that she had asked me towards the very end of her death was that she asked me to continue to support Texas Baptist Home for Children. And I told her that I would. After her death in New Mexico, it was during the time of COVID, and we weren't allowed to have funeral service visitations. As a family, we were looking for closure, and it was stressful. It was caused anger, not being able to mourn. And one of the things that I did was I reached out to the folks at the Texas Baptist Home for Children to find out about her commitment, what their needs were, and to see if I could do something to at least honor my mother. And in doing so, conversation came up about having a memorial in Waxahachie for my mother. And so I talked to my family, and we agreed to have a memorial service. And we were going to have the memorial service at the very site to where she used to live. And going to Waxahachie and going through the process, we learned as a family about her legacy and the legacy of TBHC. I also found out that one of the things that I told my mother was that there's probably, God may be leaving you here because He may be working on somebody. There may be somebody He's trying to reach. I realized that day in Waxahachie that I was that person. And God wanted me to have the same kind of continuous giving spirit that my mother did. What I found out from the directors at the home is that my mother was one of the longest continuous givers to the TBHC. She had been giving for over 30 years, every week, faithfully. She was praying for them faithfully. I realized at that time that she had such a commitment, and she was trying to make sure that we had the same kind of commitment. Even though my mother was abandoned and abused, she still had a loving spirit, a devotion to giving, a kind heart towards the children at the home. That was her home. And I think she wanted to make sure as a family that we continued that spirit and we continued that support. During our conversation with the folks in Waxahachie, we asked if there was something that we could help contribute to or be part of as a family to honor my mother. And we realized then that they were trying to finish a playground. And the significance of the playground to us was that the playground was getting built on the site where her housing unit used to stand, and at the very spot where she used to live. So we were proud to be able to support the finishing of the playground and do that in her honor. TBHC has recently opened a new branch and a new office in the Permian Basin, and our family is committed to the expansion and development of this facility. There's a tremendous need in this area. Most of our kids that are displaced from homes have to travel to the Metroplex or to Houston or somewhere else. We don't have placement for them here in the Permian Basin. So we're committed. I believe that God left my mother on earth a little longer than she wanted to be here. She wasn't very happy about it. But I think He left her here to draw attention to our family so we could draw attention to a community. And that's the purpose of this video today, is to talk about TBHC. But I want to put a face, I want to put a name, I want to put a family, and draw a picture so that this is not just any other organization, and you can know that you can trust them and that they're here. They've been doing this since 1909, and they've made a commitment, they've made a difference in the Jeter family's life. I realize that this could be a sad and emotional story, but the truth is that this was a tremendous blessing and healing process for our family. During a time of my mother's death and mourning and watching her go through pain and wondering, as she did, about what God had in store and why was she here, what we've come to realize is that God was using that situation to spread light, to open people's eyes about the need for orphan and abused children. And I believe that my mother wanted to draw that attention, and I've told my family members that if my mother was told that, hey, you have to stay one more year just to reach one child, and you got to stay in pain for 1 year just to reach one child, would she do it? Yes, that'd be her answer. As difficult as it was for my mother in the early years, children today face greater challenges. Not only are they abandoned and abused, they deal with drugs, they deal with things that we just can't imagine. And the heroes of the world are the counselors. It's the people that are willing to step up and foster these children, to do adoption. We all need givers. We all need people to write checks, and part of the reason of doing this video and being part of this is to encourage people to give. But more importantly, we need people that are willing to step up and do what the people did for my mother, to be there to love and nurture, to accept the children, to foster them, to counsel them. There's a tremendous burden. There's a great need for those people to do that and that service. That need is there today, and the Jeter family is making a commitment with our money, our time, our resource, and we want to encourage this community to step up and do the same thing. Thank you.